The billionaire came home early, and what he saw his wife doing to his black adoptive mother broke something deep inside him, and it changed everything. Alexander Wilson pushed open the quiet door of his New York mansion, thinking he would surprise the two women he loved most. But instead, he stopped in the hallway, frozen, as a sound filled the house that he was never meant to hear. It was the voice of his wife, Vanessa Blake, sharp and cold, and it was aimed at the woman who had raised him from a lost 9-year-old boy into the man he was today. The way Vanessa spoke, the words she used, the fear in his mother Rebecca's voice, all of it hit Alexander like a deep cut he could not explain. He wanted to step forward, he wanted to speak, but something told him to stay hidden, because whatever was happening behind that kitchen wall was darker than anything he expected, and stepping out too fast might make him miss the truth. As he stood there, with his hand shaking on the door frame, Alexander realized that the home he thought was filled with peace had been carrying a silent pain. A pain only his mother knew, a pain she had been suffering alone. And in that moment, as the air grew heavy and the voices on the other side grew cruel, he understood something that made his heart drop. The people we trust the most can be hiding the deepest cruelty right in front of us, and sometimes the truth waits for the exact moment when everything is quiet to show its face. The morning had started in a quiet way when billionaire Alexander Wilson decided to return to New York earlier than planned. His private jet landed before sunrise, and as he sat in the black car that drove him home, he kept thinking about only one person, Rebecca Foster, the woman who adopted him when he was a little boy with no family and no future. He had traveled for 3 long weeks, doing business meetings and signing big contracts, but his heart had stayed with her. He wanted to surprise her with breakfast, sit with her in the warm kitchen, and listen to her soft voice tell him stories the way she used to do when he was a child. When the car stopped outside the large mansion, Alexander felt a strange chill, a feeling he could not explain. Maybe it was because he had missed home, maybe it was something else. He walked inside quietly, holding his bag in one hand, ready to call out her name. But before he could speak, he heard something that made him stop. It was a voice, sharp and full of anger, a voice he never expected to hear in that way. It was his wife, Vanessa Blake. Her voice came from the kitchen, and it carried a tone that did not sound normal. It did not sound like the woman he had married. It sounded harsh, cold, and full of something darker. Alexander moved closer, step by step, careful not to make noise. He stood behind the wall near the kitchen entrance, and what he heard next made his chest tighten. "Why are you using the front hallway again?" Vanessa said in a loud, angry voice. "How many times must I tell you to use the side door? You make the house look messy, and I do not want my visitors to see you walking around like this." There was a pause, a painful pause, and then came the soft, trembling voice of Rebecca. "I am sorry, Mrs. Vanessa. I only wanted to bring the warm towels upstairs," Rebecca said in a low, tired voice, the voice of a woman who had carried many years on her shoulders. Alexander felt something inside him shift, like a quiet tear in the middle of his chest. Why was Rebecca calling Vanessa that name? Why was she apologizing like a stranger? Rebecca was the woman who raised him, the woman who gave him a home when no one wanted him. She was the one who held him when he cried as a child, the one who stayed awake all night when he had fever, the one who worked double shifts to give him food and school. She was not a worker. She was not a stranger. She was his mother. Vanessa spoke again, even sharper this time. "Do not try to act like you belong in this house. You are here because my husband has a soft spot for you. That does not make you anything special. You use the side door, you stay in the guest wing, and you do what I tell you." Rebecca's voice shook, and Alexander heard a small sound, like someone trying not to cry. "I understand, Vanessa," she whispered. "I did not mean to cause any problem. I only wanted the house to look good before Alexander returned." Those words, soft and full of love, made Alexander feel sick. His mother had been preparing the house for him, and Vanessa treated her like she was nothing. He pressed his palm against the wall, trying to understand the scene he was hearing. He could not walk into the kitchen yet. His heart told him to stay silent and listen, because the truth was still unfolding. Vanessa sighed loudly, the kind of sigh that came from irritation, not tiredness. Also, stop using the upstairs bathroom. You leave your hair everywhere, and it is disgusting. From now on, you will use the small bathroom in the basement storage room. It is better for everyone. Alexander shut his eyes for a moment, trying to control the anger rising in him. The basement bathroom had no heating. It was cold, small, and not safe for a woman Rebecca's age. Yet, Vanessa said it like it was nothing, like it was a normal instruction. Rebecca tried to speak again, her voice trembling. But the basement is cold, and my bones hurt in cold places. My doctor said I should avoid cold water. Then use cold water, Vanessa replied without emotion. It will teach you a lesson. You are not a guest here. You are only tolerated. Do not forget that. The quiet sound of a cup gently tapping the counter followed, and Alexander could almost see Rebecca standing there, her hands shaking, her heart breaking in silence. He knew that sound too well, the sound of her holding her pain with dignity. It was the same sound she made when she was younger, when she worked 3 jobs and still found a way to smile at him. Alexander stepped closer, just enough to peek without being seen. His stomach twisted when he saw his mother wearing a plain cleaning uniform, her shoulders bent, her eyes full of sadness. She held a cup of tea that had already gone cold. She looked smaller than he remembered, like life had been pressing her down for a long time. Vanessa stood in front of her, dressed in expensive clothes, her expression full of irritation. "You should be grateful I even let you stay here," she said, pushing a plate aside. "People like you are lucky when rich families show kindness. Do not ever forget that." Alexander felt his hand shake. His throat felt tight. Every word Vanessa said cut him deeper. The woman who raised him was being spoken to like she was trash. He wanted to walk in and shout. He wanted to protect her. But something in his heart told him to wait. Because if Vanessa could say these things openly, then there must be many things she said when he was not home. He needed to know everything. And in that painful moment, as he stood there with his heart cracking open, he understood something dangerous. The home he had built with love and trust had been hiding secrets, and those secrets were hurting the only person he owed everything to. Slowly, he stepped back from the kitchen door, his breathing tight, his mind full of questions, and a pain he could not explain. The truth was just beginning to show itself, but Alexander knew this was only the first page of something much darker. Alexander walked slowly down the quiet hallway, his steps soft on the smooth floor. His mind felt heavy, like something had been placed on his chest that he could not remove. The voice of his mother, Rebecca, still echoed in his ears. The fear, the tiredness, the way she apologized for things she did not do. He reached his office, closed the door gently, and leaned against it, trying to let his thoughts settle. But the pain did not settle. It felt deeper, stronger, like a wound that had been opened without warning. He sat down at his desk, placed both hands on his face, and allowed himself to breathe. This was not how he imagined his return home. He thought he would see a warm smile from Rebecca, a soft laugh from her as she told him how she missed him. Instead, he had seen fear in her eyes, fear in his own home, fear caused by someone he trusted. He turned toward the large computer screen on his desk, the same system he used to check security around the mansion. For years, he had cameras everywhere, not because he suspected anything, but because he liked to feel safe, and he wanted his mother to feel safe too. Now, he opened the camera files with shaking hands. He clicked on the kitchen camera first, then the hallway, then the guest wing Rebecca stayed in. His chest tightened again when he saw something on the timeline that made his fingers freeze. There were many recordings marked with little red lines, meaning movement had been detected. But some of the files showed repeated movement only when he was not home. It was a pattern, something he had never noticed because he had trusted Vanessa to take care of everything when he traveled. He clicked the first video. It showed Rebecca carrying a tray of food toward the dining room, smiling softly, doing what she always did with love. But then Vanessa entered the room, her face filled with anger. In the recording, Vanessa grabbed the tray from Rebecca, placed it on the floor, and pointed toward the basement with a cold expression. Alexander leaned closer to the screen, his heart sinking. Vanessa said something, but the camera did not pick up sound in that corner. Still, Rebecca's body language told him everything. Her shoulders lowered, her head dropped slightly, and she carried the tray down the stairs to the basement. He clicked the next video. This time, it showed the basement camera. Rebecca sat on a small stool, eating the cold leftovers alone, her hands shaking slightly. She looked around the empty room with sad eyes, the same eyes that once looked at him with so much hope. Alexander felt his throat tighten as he watched her cover her legs with a thin blanket, trying to stay warm. It was winter in New York, and the basement had no heating. He remembered that clearly because the workers had told him years ago that the basement water pipes got too cold. Alexander paused the video. He placed his hand on the table, steadying himself. "How long has this been happening?" he whispered to himself, his voice soft and broken. He clicked another recording. This one showed Rebecca baking a small cake, carefully, slowly, like she wanted it to be perfect. The date on the video made his breath stop. It was the anniversary of their adoption day, the day she officially became his mother. He had asked Vanessa to prepare something special for Rebecca that night because he was away. He had wanted Rebecca to feel loved. In the video, Rebecca placed candles on the cake, smiling with a soft joy. Then the door opened, and Vanessa walked in. Instead of smiling, instead of celebrating, she looked at the cake with disgust. She walked to it, blew out the candles, and tossed the whole cake into the trash can, right in front of Rebecca's eyes. Rebecca bowed her head, as if she had been hit by something invisible, and began cleaning the table quietly. Vanessa took photos of the clean table with her phone, then left, closing the door behind her. Alexander pressed pause so suddenly that the screen shook. He stared at his reflection in the dark monitor. His eyes were full of burning pain, but his voice stayed calm as he whispered to himself, "She lied to me." He remembered calling Vanessa that night, asking if his mother enjoyed the surprise. Vanessa had cried on the phone, telling him it was beautiful, telling him Rebecca cried from joy. But the woman crying in that video was not crying from joy. She was crying from pain. Alexander leaned back in his seat, trying to process everything. Anger, sadness, disbelief, all mixed inside him like a storm that had no direction. He had built a life of comfort and love for Rebecca because she gave him everything she had, and now someone had taken that love and crushed it. He clicked another video. This one shocked him even more. It showed Vanessa taking Rebecca's mail, opening letters meant for her, then throwing some of them away. Rebecca stood nearby, asking softly if any mail had come for her that week, and Vanessa looked her in the eye and said, "No, nothing came." Alexander felt something inside him break. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would she do this to her?" He clicked on more recordings, each revealing something worse. Vanessa hiding the heater remote. Vanessa blocking Rebecca from using the main living room. Vanessa shouting at her, while other rich women laughed in the background. The last video made Alexander stop breathing for a moment. Rebecca stood in the cold basement, wrapping herself in a thin sweater, whispering to herself, "Maybe I do not belong here anymore. Maybe Vanessa is right." Hearing that made Alexander stand up quickly, pushing his chair back. "No," he said, softly but firmly. "You do belong here, Mom. You belong with me." He walked to the window, looking at the city lights outside. His mind was no longer confused. It was clear now. Too clear. He could not let this continue. Something had to be done, and he had to do it with care, with patience, with precision. Just like Rebecca taught him when he was young, there was a time to stay silent and a time to act. His phone buzzed suddenly. It was a message from Vanessa. "Are you home yet, love?" It read. "I want to talk to you about your mother. Something strange happened today." Alexander stared at the message, his jaw tightening slowly. A strange calmness washed over him, the kind that came when a person finally understood the truth and knew what needed to be done. He typed back, "Yes, I am home. We will talk in the morning." But in his heart, he already knew that the next morning would change everything. Morning light entered the large mansion slowly, touching the walls with a soft glow. But inside Alexander Wilson's heart, there was no light. There was only a quiet storm. He barely slept through the night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rebecca sitting alone in the cold basement, eating cold food, shaking, whispering to herself that she did not belong in the house he built for her. It felt like a knife in his chest, a knife that kept turning every time he remembered Vanessa's voice, the cruelty, the lies, the disrespect. Alexander sat at the kitchen table early that morning, before the house woke up. He placed his hands together and stared at the cup of coffee in front of him, untouched. He knew today would be the day he started protecting his mother, but he had to do it the right way. He could not just shout. He could not just break things in anger. Vanessa was smart, and she knew how to pretend. If he moved too fast, she would twist the story, lie to everyone, and try to make Rebecca look confused. So he sat quietly, planning, thinking, remembering the lessons Rebecca taught him when he was young. When Alexander was 12, he came home with a bruised lip after boys at school made fun of him for being adopted. Rebecca cleaned his lip carefully and told him, "Baby, when someone tries to make you feel small, do not rush to fight. Think first, breathe, prepare, because smart people win with patience, not anger." That memory guided him now. A gentle sound came from the hallway. Alexander lifted his head and saw Rebecca walking slowly into the kitchen, holding a small plate with toast. She looked tired, but when she saw him, she tried to smile. It was not a strong smile. It was a fragile one, the kind people make when they are hurting inside but trying to hide it. "You are up early, baby," she said softly, placing the plate on the table. "I wanted to make breakfast for you since you came home late yesterday." Alexander stood and walked to her carefully. He did not want to scare her. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders, feeling how thin and tired she felt. "Mom," he said softly, "sit with me, please. I want to talk to you." Rebecca looked confused for a moment. Then she nodded and sat down. She folded her hands together, the way she did when she was nervous. Alexander sat beside her, not across from her, because he wanted her to feel close, not distant. "Mom," he began slowly, "is Vanessa treating you well when I am not home?" Rebecca's eyes lowered. Her fingers moved slowly, tightening and loosening. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Her silence hurt more than any answer. Finally, she breathed in softly. "Baby," she whispered, "she has her moments. Maybe I do things the wrong way sometimes. Maybe I move too slow for her. Maybe I forget things. I do not know. I do not want to trouble you." Alexander's chest tightened. "You are not the problem," he said firmly. "You never were. You never will be." Tears gathered in Rebecca's eyes, but she tried to blink them away. "I am old now," she said quietly. "Maybe I am getting in the way. Maybe Vanessa is right. Maybe I should go back to my old place in the Bronx. I do not want to be a burden." Those words felt like someone stabbed Alexander straight in the heart. He leaned forward, took her hands gently, and said, "Mom, look at me. You will never be a burden in your own son's house. Never." Rebecca looked up slowly, her eyes wet. But she said I make the house look messy. She said rich people will think you are strange for keeping me here. She said that because she is cruel, Alexander replied calmly, and because she does not understand love. You raised me, Mom. You saved me. Everything I am today came from your sacrifice. You do not owe anyone an apology. Rebecca wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I did not want to tell you, she whispered. I did not want to spoil your marriage. Alexander shook his head slowly. No, Mom, you could never spoil anything. Vanessa spoiled this herself. Just then, footsteps approached. Vanessa walked into the kitchen with a bright fake smile. Oh, good morning, she said sweetly, touching Alexander's arm. I was just about to call you for breakfast. I wanted to talk to you about your mother. There were some very strange things this week. Alexander watched her carefully. Her smile looked perfect, but her eyes held something dark, something cold. What strange things? He asked, keeping his voice calm and relaxed. Vanessa sighed in a fake worried way. She has been forgetting simple things, she said, leaving the stove on, waking up confused, trying to call you at odd hours. I am worried she might hurt herself. I think we should look into getting her professional help. Rebecca's hands began to tremble. Alexander noticed, and he placed his hand over hers softly to comfort her. Really? He said in a calm voice. And when exactly did these things happen? Vanessa spoke with confidence, as if she rehearsed the lies many times. It happened many times this month, she said. I did not want to worry you, but I think she might be losing her memory. I already spoke to a doctor who said she may need a special home. Alexander's heartbeat was steady, but his mind was sharp. He knew this was all part of Vanessa's plan, a plan he had already seen in the recordings. She was trying to make Rebecca look weak so she could send her away. He smiled calmly, the same smile he used in business meetings when he already knew the truth. Vanessa, he said softly, thank you for your concern. We will talk about this later. Right now, I want to eat with my mother. Vanessa looked surprised that Alexander did not immediately agree with her. Oh, she said, forcing a smile. Of course, no problem. But Alexander saw something shift in her eyes. A small flicker of worry, a sign that she sensed something was changing. Rebecca tried to stand, but Alexander gently helped her sit back down. Eat with me, Mom, he said, please. Vanessa watched, her smile fading slowly. She stood near the counter, pretending to cut fruit, but her hands were stiff. She could feel Alexander slipping away from her control, and fear was starting to grow in her. After breakfast, Vanessa went upstairs. The moment she disappeared, Alexander turned to Rebecca and said, Mom, I promise you, I will protect you. I will fix everything. Rebecca nodded, but her eyes showed she was scared. Alexander stood up, took his phone, and walked toward the door. He knew what he had to do next. He needed proof. He needed help. And he needed to move before Vanessa made her next step. He stepped outside into the cold morning air, took a deep breath, and dialed a number he had saved earlier. Hello, a deep calm voice answered. This is Marcus Green, Alexander said quietly. I need your help. It is urgent. And with that call, the real battle began. The air outside was cold when Alexander stepped onto the front porch, but he barely felt it. His mind was focused, steady, and ready. As the call connected and Marcus Green spoke, Alexander explained everything slowly, every detail, every painful moment he discovered on the security cameras. Marcus listened without interrupting. And when Alexander finished, the investigator spoke in a serious, calm voice. Alexander, this is not simple disrespect, Marcus said. This is abuse. Your mother is in danger. We must move carefully, but we must move now. Alexander nodded even though Marcus could not see him. What do I need to do? He asked. Marcus replied, I will need access to your wife's devices for at least 2 hours. Her phone, her laptop, anything she uses. I will pull out every message she wrote, every recording, every call, even deleted files. Alexander breathed in slowly. You will have them, he said. Marcus continued. While I do that, you must keep acting normal. Do not let her know you found anything. Her type becomes dangerous when cornered. She will try to move faster if she suspects you know. Alexander closed his eyes for a moment. I understand. After the call ended, he stood still on the porch, letting the cold air help clear his mind. He remembered something Rebecca once told him when he was young. When they had only $10 left for the whole week, she said, "Baby, life will not always be kind, but you must be strong, patient, and smart. And when you protect someone you love, the world will open doors for you." It was time to protect her the same way she protected him. He walked back into the house slowly. Rebecca was washing dishes in the kitchen, her movements gentle and careful, like she did not want to make a mistake. Alexander's chest tightened again. She should not be scared in her own home. She should not feel small in a place he built for her comfort. "Mom," he said softly. She turned, her eyes warming when she saw him. "Yes, baby." He walked to her and held her hand. "Do not wash the dishes today. Rest, please." Rebecca smiled a little. "I need to keep the kitchen nice. Vanessa gets upset when I do not finish early." Alexander squeezed her hand gently. "Mom, I want you to rest. I will handle everything." Rebecca looked at him carefully, as if she sensed something heavy on his heart. "Are you sure you are all right?" she asked. He forced a small smile. "I will be," he said softly. "I promise." A few hours later, Vanessa came downstairs dressed in a beautiful silver dress. There was an important charity dinner that night in Manhattan, one she had been preparing for all week. She walked into the living room with a confident smile, the kind of smile she used when she felt powerful. "Alexander, are you ready?" she asked sweetly. He stood from the couch and looked at her carefully. "Yes, I am ready," he said calmly. Vanessa stepped closer and adjusted his collar like a loving wife. At the dinner, "Please try to stay close," she said. "Some people want to meet us, and I want everything to look perfect." Alexander looked into her eyes, searching for even a little truth, but all he saw was someone who thought she controlled everything around her. "I will stay close," he replied in a steady, calm voice. As she walked toward the door, she placed her phone on the charger, the same thing she did before every big event, so she would not be distracted. This was the perfect moment Marcus needed. Alexander took the phone quietly, placed it in an envelope, and stepped outside quickly. His driver was waiting. "Take this to the address I sent," Alexander said firmly. The driver nodded and left immediately. Inside the mansion, Vanessa walked back into the room. "Where is my phone?" she asked. "You left it upstairs," Alexander said calmly. "Oh," she replied, laughing a little. "I always forget. I will get it later." But Alexander knew she did not forget anything. She only believed her world was too perfect for anyone to challenge her. The dinner was bright and crowded. Music played, cameras flashed, and rich families from all over New York gathered to celebrate themselves. Vanessa smiled at everyone, shook hands, laughed loudly, and introduced Alexander proudly like nothing was wrong in their lives. But Alexander barely heard the voices around him. His phone vibrated in his pocket. It was Marcus. "It is done," Marcus said quietly. "I found everything. Not only what she did to your mother, but detailed chats with other rich wives planning the same abuse for their elderly relatives. I have screenshots, videos, and full documents. You have enough to expose all of them." Alexander closed his eyes for a moment. "Thank you," he whispered. When they reached home later that night, Rebecca was sitting on the couch, waiting for them. Vanessa walked past her without looking at her. Alexander paused beside his mother and touched her shoulder gently. "Mom," he whispered, "stay here. I need you to hear something." Rebecca looked confused but nodded. Alexander walked into the living room and called softly, "Vanessa, come here, please." Vanessa walked in with a glass of wine in her hand. "Yes, love, what is it?" she asked. Alexander looked at his phone, then at her. His voice was calm, too calm. "I need to talk to you about something important." Vanessa smiled like nothing was wrong. "Of course, what is it?" Alexander pressed a button on his phone. The large screen on the wall lit up. The first thing that appeared was a screenshot of a message from Vanessa to her group chat. "Rebecca is getting more confused," it read. "I need to send her away soon." Vanessa's smile faded instantly. "Alexander, what are you doing?" she whispered. He did not answer. Another message appeared, then another. "You cannot let old people like her stay in your home, and she is only here because he feels guilty for being adopted." Rebecca covered her mouth with her hand, tears filling her eyes. Vanessa stepped forward, shaking. "Alexander, let me explain," she said quickly. He lifted his hand for her to stop. The next video played. It showed Vanessa throwing away Rebecca's cake. Another video showed her forcing Rebecca to eat alone in the cold basement. Rebecca cried silently. Vanessa began shaking her head fast. "No, no, this is taken out of context," she said, her voice breaking. Alexander looked at her with steady eyes. "You lied to me," he said softly. "You hurt my mother, and you planned to send her away forever." Vanessa fell to her knees, crying loudly. "Please, Alexander, please, I am sorry. I will change. Just give me time." Rebecca stepped forward. "You do not have to change for me," she said softly. "You just have to leave." Alexander spoke calmly. "There is a car waiting outside. Your bags are already inside. This marriage is over." Vanessa cried more, begging, shaking, trying to hold his hand, but Alexander stepped back. "You hurt the only person who ever loved me with no conditions," he said, "and I will not let you stay here another night." Minutes later, Vanessa was gone. 1 year passed. Rebecca stood in front of a group of children at a small community center Alexander built in her honor. She taught them basic computer skills, smiling with a new light in her eyes. The pain was gone. She was safe. Alexander stood at the door, watching her with pride. He finally understood something simple but powerful. Family is not built with blood. Family is built with love, sacrifice, and protection. And protecting the person who protected him was the greatest victory of his life. Dear viewers, this story shows us something deep, something many people forget in this world. Love is not measured by blood, it is measured by sacrifice, by protection, by the courage to stand for the people who stood for us when we had nothing. Alexander did not fight with anger. He fought with truth. And he fought with his heart, because the woman who saved him as a child deserved peace, respect, and safety. This story reminds us that cruelty can hide behind a smile, and kindness can stay silent until the right moment. But when truth finally comes, it clears every lie, and it shows who truly belongs in our life. Rebecca was not just a mother by adoption, she was a mother by heart, and she proved that real family is the one that protects you when the world turns its back. Dear viewers, tell us where you are watching from, and share what you learned from this story. We want to hear your thoughts, your lessons, and your feelings. Your voice matters to us. If you want more powerful, emotional, and touching stories like this, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs hope today. And if you want more stories from us, comment, "More stories," and you will be the first to receive our next emotional story. Before you go, here are 3 questions you can answer in the comments section. 1. Do you think Alexander made the right choice by exposing the truth and ending the marriage? 2. If you were Rebecca, what would you have done in her situation? 3. What does family mean to you? Is it blood or love? Thank you for watching, dear viewers, and we will see you in the next emotional story.